Hello, my dear friends. There's a tremendous problem in this week's parsha. Yaakov is running away from his father's house because he's escaping from Esav. He's a fugitive. Esav vowed to kill him. Yaakov is traveling and he comes to a place and he falls asleep. And when he's asleep, what does he see? He has a dream, the famous dream of Sulam Mutzav Artzav Rosh Magiyah Meshamayma. The ladder is towering up into the heavens. And what's on the ladder? There's angels going, God's angels going up and down the ladder. So Yaakov says, when he wakes up, and he said, indeed, there's God is here. And I didn't know. And Rashi says, what difference does it make? It makes a difference, as Yaakov said. I wouldn't have gone to sleep. You're going to go to sleep in such a holy place where there's angels all over the place. Well, how can I go to sleep? So Yaakov says, but I didn't know. So the tremendous, obvious question is, what does it mean that Yaakov says, I didn't know? He didn't believe in God? He didn't know that God is omnipresent? Of course he knew. Avram Avinu, his tremendous grandfather, is the one that taught monotheism to the whole world. He spent his whole life. He called out the name of God. He taught everybody that there's a Ribono Shel Olam. And Yitzchak was a great person, his father. And the Avram and Yitzchak went through the Akedah. And Yaakov himself was a giant. And he spent the last 14 years before this trip took place, before he fell asleep, he was learning day and night. And he didn't sleep for 14 years. He was learning Yeshiva Shem Aver. He was a giant of a religious personality. Yaakov didn't know that God is here. I didn't know. If I had known, I wouldn't have gone to sleep. You ask a 3-year-old child, where is God? So right away, they'll sing the song. Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. Up, up, down, down, right, left, and all around. So how is it possible that Yaakov says, I didn't know, I didn't realize it. Now I found out, I see the angels floating up and down, climbing up and down. What does that mean? So the answer is, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter developed a very powerful idea based on a pasuk in Chumash. The pasuk says in Devarim, "V'yadata hayom v'hashivosa alevecha." You should know today, and you should bring it to your heart. Ki Hashem hu Elokim, the God is the Almighty. B'shamayim mimal, in the heavens above, al aretz mitachas, and in the land below. Ein od, there is no one else besides Hashem. So I understand it said v'yadata, you should know. V'yadata hayom, you should know today. What's this v'hashivosa alevecha? If you know, why? What does it mean? You should take it to heart. Why do I have to take it to heart? If I know that God is all over, what do I mean I take it to heart? So the answer is, there's two types of knowing. There's intellectual knowledge and there's emotional knowledge. There's things that we know in our minds, but they're abstractions. It's cold knowledge, but it doesn't move us. It doesn't change us. It doesn't resonate with us. V'hashivosa means you have to take the things that you understand and you know are true, but you have to bring it to a level where it resonates with you, where it's a driving force in your life. We all have emunah. We could all say the same thing Yaakov said. We all have emunah. We all know that God is everywhere. We say Baruch Hashem, Be'ezras Hashem, with God's help, and God runs the world. All of the right things, but it's not a live thing with us. It's not something that we walk around. Yaakov said if he knew God was there, he wouldn't have slept. Because there's angels there. How can you go to sleep where there's angels? Well, Chazal say that there's 2 angels that escort. A person is escorted by angels all the time. When you come home Shabbos, you come home with the angels. That's why we sing Shalom Aleichem. But we go to sleep. How come? Where there's angels. Why don't we also say the same thing? The answer is, yeah, we know there's angels, but we don't feel that there's angels. If we would see an angel, we would probably faint on the spot. Why would we faint? We know there's angels. That's what we talk about it all the time. We're always talking about the angels. But it's not something that's alive. It's not something that resonates with us. Noach, the Chumash says that Noach went into the Teva because of the waters of the Mabel. So Rashi says, what do you mean Mabel? Rashi says he was a Maimin, Vein a Maimin. He believed and he didn't believe. Because until the Mabel started, he wasn't sure there was going to be a Mabel. And that's incredible. Noah spent 120 years building a Mabul. Why building a Teva? Why did he build a Teva if he wasn't sure? And you know how much ridicule he had to endure? People said to Noah, what are you doing? And he was building this huge ship, and it wasn't usually you build a ship at a seaport. He was building in his backyard. He had this huge, gigantic ship. And people said, no, what are you doing? He says, I'm building a teva because it's going to be a mabel. Well, could you imagine how much they ridiculed? No, the Meshugana. He's building a ship in his backyard in case it's going to be, there's all these people in Meshugaim. They go around saying the world's coming to an end with the placards, and they walk around Times Square. So Noah had such strong conviction. He didn't care. He built the teva for 120 years. So then, when it comes time, finally, now it's time to go into the Mabul. God said, go into the teva. I'm not into Mabul, the teva. God said, go into the teva. And Noah waited to see if it was really going to rain. Oh, when it started raining. And even then, when the rain became heavy, now it's stopped. Now we got to go into the teva. Well, what's Noah waiting for? What's going on? What does it mean? He's maimin, vein, and maimin. That's what it means. It means there was the Vedata Hayom, intellectually knew, but that you have to bring it, you have to take it to your heart. It has to move you. It has to be something that's alive. I had an experience this summer that I want to share with you. Peggy and I were in Israel, and we went to the Israeli Museum, and in the Israeli Museum, they have the exhibit of the Dead Sea Scrolls. There are scores of Dead Sea Scrolls, and most of them, or many of them, were volumes from Tanakh, of the different Nevi'im. One of the scrolls is from Sefer Yeshaya, and it's the one scroll that has the whole Sefer Yeshaya. Yeshaya is about 60, 70 prakim. The entire Yeshaya is in the Dead Sea Scroll, is one of the scrolls, and it's almost identical. They don't know exactly who wrote the scrolls. The Esians, they don't know so much about them, but it was almost identical to our Sefer Yeshaya. It so happened, it worked out, Hashgacha Pratis, divine providence. We went there, Erev Shabbos Chazon. Tisha B'Av was the following week. That Shabbos was called Shabbos Chazon. Why? Because on Shabbos Chazon, you read the Haftarah, Chazon Yeshayahu ben Amatz. This is the vision of Yeshaya. They have the exhibit of the scrolls. Almost all of them are facsimiles. They're too precious to put out all the Dead Sea. They're fragile. But they had some selected fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls. When we were there, the one fragment they had out, and maybe they did that on purpose, was the first chapter of the Sefer Yeshaya, Chazon Yeshayahu ben Amatz. And I was so moved to see it. I took a picture. This is a reverse image, so you can't tell. You won't be able to read it. But you could read it. It says, Chazon Yeshayahu ben Amatz. You could see the words. And here it is. It's Erev Shabbos Chazon, and I see the Dead Sea Scroll that's the parak in Navi of Chazon Yeshayahu. Why did it move me so much? Because Yeshayahu and Navi lived about 2,800 years ago, 2,700 years ago. We know that there was Yeshayahu and Navi. We talk about it all the time, and we Shabbos Chazon every year. We read Chazon Yeshayahu ben Amatz. We know all about it, but it's ancient history. It's not something that's alive. It's not something that moves us. It's not something that we feel in our heart. We know in the head, but not it hasn't traveled into our heart. But when I saw the scroll, which was, albeit it wasn't written by Yeshaya, but it was a few centuries after Yeshaya. Here's something that was written 2,800 years ago. So it's ancient history for me. But I see the scroll was written just not that far away from the time that Yeshaya lived. Wow, it meant so much to me. It was and this is a problem every single person has. The dichotomy between the Yadat Hayom and the Hashavos Alevecha. We go into shul. Yaakov said he wouldn't have slept if he knew there were angels. Well, you know what? Shul is full of angels. There's angels floating all around the shul. If we would see the angels, we would faint on the spot. But because we don't see them, so people are bored with davening. They don't feel the presence. God, not only the angels, but God's presence is in the Shekhinah, is in the shul. It's wow. It's astounding. And the davening would be exciting. We wouldn't be bored, and we wouldn't be tired, and we'd be petrified to have conversations. You stand in front of God, you're going to have conversations. Well, how is it possible? But because there's the disconnect between V'yadat Hayom, what you know in your head, and what you feel in your heart. And even Yaakov Avinu, as great as he was, Yaakov said, Anochi lo yadati, I didn't know. Of course he knew intellectually, but he didn't feel it until he saw the angels. And he realized this is a holy place. Every place is holy. Every single place in the world, the Shekhinah is present everywhere. But we don't feel it. And therefore, even Yaakov Avinu didn't feel it until he actually saw the angels. And this is something that requires effort, to take those things that we know and bring them into a level where we feel it in our hearts. And we have to take advantage. There are many times where we have religious experiences, and that's the time to jump on the bandwagon. A person has a child that's born, a baby is born. Everybody feels it's a miracle. How does a human being come out of the mother's womb and the baby's alive and the baby's animated? It's a nace. Now where the parents, the excitement over the nace unfortunately only lasts a few days. But initially, wow, it's like they feel God is there. God brought this baby into. How else does a neshama get into a baby? And a healthy baby comes out of the mother's womb. How does that transport? With all the scientific explanations that there are, but everybody feels it's a nace. So that's the time to think about it. My family celebrated yesterday the engagement. Mafegi and I celebrated the engagement of our son, our wonderful son, Binyamin Simcha. He's engaged to a super wonderful Kala. He's super wonderful, and the Kala's super wonderful. Shira Cohn from Minneapolis. And last night we went to the Vort. It was such a wonderful experience. And there's so much hashgacha prat. Every shidduch is hashgacha prat. This is divine providence. There's so many moving parts that have to happen. And it's just, I sitting there, I could feel how God was pulling the strings, and he was moving things along, and he was encouraging and pushing, and behind the scenes, everything was being moved by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it came to fruition. It's a wonderful family, and the Cohn family, the Kala's grandfather was my old Chavrusa, Shmuel Friedler from Philadelphia, like old friend. So many different parts of the shidduch were just fabulous and wonderful, but especially the Chassan and Kala, you see them together, they're mamish like two peas in a pot. It's hashgacha pratis. But when you see such a thing, that's the time to say, V'anochi lo yadati, I didn't realize, I didn't know. Now I know. But a person has to think about it. You have to think about it. You have to take, when these types of experiences take place, that's the time to capitalize it. That's grab the opportunity and say to yourself, Anochi lo yadati. But it's true. If it's true this time, then it's always true. It's always God is moving things along. God in the heavens and in the earth, all over. Everything that's happening is being through HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we come into shul, we should feel the Shekhinah, feel the divine presence and daven to Hashem with great kavanah. Thank you very much for listening. We should all have simchas in our lives. Everybody who needs a shidduch should find the proper chassan and kala as soon as possible. B'meheira, b'karo, mamish. We should all celebrate simchas, and I wish everyone you should have a very beautiful and wonderful Shabbos.